So why is there creation? Why is there time-space? Why bother with the journey of discovery of the oneness?
When you ask about creation, the idea of the fractal comes to form, because it is the informing principle of how the universe is structured. And so the structure actually, form follows function. So the functioning aspect of God wanting to create out of desire to experience itself is the engine that increases out into the the involution process. Is this increase of God becoming more and more from wave into particle, into every layer down to the cells, the molecules, the atoms become lights unto themselves. The atom knows itself as its star almost. And the human energy fields can equate itself to, whole planets. That's why we can even think of I'm married to the oneness of Gaia, to the planetary consciousness. Oh, now I'm feeling like I'm the whole solar system. Okay, now I'm moving my consciousness as if I was the galactic fin of creation. And so the more that we do that, the more that God feels itself at all these various levels of being. And there's something to that fractaling that is coherency meeting itself at multiple dimensions that actually creates phase conjugation of more superconductivity, because it's kind of like it's kind of like at different dimensional levels it's meeting itself. And so there's something to that process that is
self-discovery of the one of itself. God discovers itself through the process of becoming, growing itself into a self-aware entity that then remembers itself and creates that feedback loop that then allows that to ascend to yet another higher nodule of expressing of itself. We do know there are beings that far supersede being human, but they exist at such fast velocities we can't conceive and perceive of them anymore. They can collapse time and space, which people have had experiences. I've had experiences of being taken out of time, physically being taken out of time and space. And so obviously the limiter that we have in this dimension is a certain capacity within. Is it our soul that determines the vibratory incarnation then? Is that what we're working at? Is the next capacity taking us into a vaster body of incarnation of form?
Yes. These were all experiences happening earlier today for me. So it's great to talk about it, because it was feeling like beyond a concept. It was actually experiencing how here we are in our seemingly present state within time space. We're these humans, we're these vessels that we're calling humans in a biological skin suit, with these kind of senses. But as we increase our consciousness, we become aware of other beings that are oscillating at different vibrations. But what always happens with me is as I vibrate myself into that field, I know myself as that, as those beings. I see that there's a level of my own consciousness that is coexistent with the fabric of that intelligence.
Very beautiful. So you exist simultaneously at potentialities depending on your capacity of igniting it. You embody those states.
Embody those, and at a level today, what was very unique was that I was seeing, because I passed through the planetary lip and the cultural lip of, you know, what Christianity would call the angelic realm, or the archangelic, or the Elohim, like creator beings. And then I was seeing and oscillating through that cultural subset. And then I was seeing the Buddhas of the different realms that were holding creation and virtues and qualities, and the different Buddhas that were emanations of different, you know, aspects of the monad that were kind of organizing principles.
Organizing principles, beautiful.
Yeah.
The Buddhic incarnation of compassion, of
Yes.
all the different,
Right.
like you said, emanations.
Yeah. And, you know, each of these cultures have very specific names for these beings. Now, whether those names have any meanings except for signposts that help us to connect to those qualities, those virtues, those organizing fields of intelligence. You know, that's another case for, does creation just become nothing when we finally go into samadhi? No, it actually increases in individuation at higher and higher levels, and they are organizing fields, such as the Buddha of this, or the Archangel Raphael. You know, whatever it is, you know, they're holding qualities of consciousness together. And so I was moving through the cultural planetary lip and moving into those connections with those beings of archetypal forces, and they revealed themselves as forces and not named beings, you know.
Fields of energy, or fields of vibration, fields of matrices that then emanate and create a coherency that trickle down and we experience as a virtue, as a quality, and that expresses itself individually through actions, deeds, beliefs, and manifestations such as kindness, tolerance, for example. Let me ask you, how do you take the field of coherency, and we of course described how we do that, but let's just do it for the audience listening in. How would you describe best how we can do that? Engage the field of soul encounter. How do we do that? And in which way do we create that greater field of union between two, let's just say two people?
Well, I would say first, it's a place where we unite feeling with concept. Like we've talked a lot about concepts, and concepts do help us to deliver into states of frequency. And then when we register a feeling that's associated with it, we actually start to generate a current, because the heart, we can think of it, the heart as a toroidal field too. It's really generating feelings and frequencies for us to engage. Otherwise, it's flat. It remains as a concept. And so feeling helps us to move from one energetic state to another. And so
So let's just take it into practicality right now. You and I are sitting here, we're talking. What can we, guide me through what you would want to do and what you would like to invite me to do with you, and then practice or demonstrate the states so that whoever's watching, some will be just listening, get an idea of what can be done. And describe what happens from your perspective, from your inner perspective.
So I'd like to invite us to take the aspect of our self, our human soul, our human self, and move it into the higher self, or the space where the soul is an expression of the divine light. And so moving into that space requires us to create a shared field, but first we have to feel it inside
ourselves, individually.
Inside ourselves first. We have to we have to open, like we've talked about, we open like a lotus. We give ourselves into that higher force. So there's a relinquishing of, you know,
Okay, so you're saying open myself to what I would call, maybe you said you called it your higher self. The lotus, the higher vibratory being, a vibratory being. So moving away from identity, this is my body, this is my who I am, to a field, of luminosity. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, to a field of luminosity. And so it does require a focusing or a gathering. So we're gathering presence, we're gathering light. We actually sense the lightness of our being as a quality or a feeling.
And where do I center that within myself?
Well, when you ask me, where I move from is my heart energy starts to gather up, and then it rises and increases its vibration, and it offers itself up into my higher chakras, and then it becomes an opening through my crown.
So what just came to me as an image, what might help somebody to preconceive of it, is the first beginning stages to imagine being I just thought of a Kuan Yin for me as a female, a Devic being, a loving, generous, kind, effulgent being that radiates out from the heart, something like that.
Yeah, I would say that that's an amazing place to start. That the quality of the heart starts to shine with a sense of selflessness, with a sense of the higher virtues that we know from other beings or spiritual traditions. And from that place, and that's part of why we have these beings that also connect us with our own sense of what a higher self is. The higher self also holds those same qualities or virtues that we consider different aspects of God or goddess or mythical beings or angels. Those help us to have a sense of our own virtuous beingness.
So stepping into a matrix of a higher vibratory being as a matrix in our mental concepts helps us to feel or flesh it in or fill it with the ether of a felt sense. So, okay, let's go ahead and do that as the beginning stages, because I do think that all of us listening at this stage anyways can probably resort to the Bodhisattva of compassion, the Devic being, the Kuan Yin, the Mother Mary, the saintly Archangel Michael, whatever you want to step into as an archetypal structure of energy. As we said before, we're working with conceptual structures that are more than that, but they help us create a formula for our mind to fill an energetic presence into. So let's do that together, you and I. Okay. So and everybody listening, choose your own matrix. Where would you like to emanate from? If you had your most ideal self, I like to say, if you imagined yourself in the far distant future as an evolved being, I mean, far distant could be 1,000 years of incarnations, could be 10,000, whatever you want, or 100,000. What kind of being would you become? I mean, even if you just were ethereal in nature, what kind of form, shape, light, quality would you take on, right? So what happens for you as we do that?
Yeah, so we use that feeling of that emanation of who we're becoming at our highest version. We use that as a way to also to give ourselves into that. So there's an idea of giving ourselves immediately takes us out of the well, I'm just here to receive. There's something
I love that. I love that. Even when you've said that before, it's like, yes, yes, whenever we want to just take, we actually do better when we start giving what we want to receive, and we'll be out of that loop.
and that another
So
easy
powerful.
way to feel into it is the sense of gratitude. It's the instant access doorway,
Yeah.
is to feel gratitude, because gratitude generates the kindness of giving as well. And so that generosity is the kind of just this returning to itself of beauty, of just the fortune and blessing that creation's blessing us.
Yes.
And then we say, I I I am a blessing to creation. If
Yeah.
we can get to that level where the
Yeah.
ego is not playing down on itself,
Yeah.
and instead say, actually, I am a blessing, and by giving of myself, I bless
Receive.
creation.
I receive and I give at the same time as I'm grateful for the blessing I receive. I become a blessing, and it becomes an effulgence of fullness, a self-fulfilling selflessness that no longer is suffering. It's no longer occupied with self. It becomes a conduit, a transformer, a transformational station of love, of light.
Yeah. It's like when we touch into that place, and we can see that as a place in the body, the heart, the crown, the third eye, a place above our head. But as we touch into those spaces, we become an outpouring
Right.
from that place. And so that immediately gets us in touch with the sense of there's an outpouring of soul, of consciousness, of love, and we can put a certain virtue there, and it helps us.
Okay,
You know?
so now we're touching into form that is still having a matrix, like an archangel form, or it's still within the levels of form. So in the in a cosmology that I have, the physical, the energetic level, astral, refining itself up to the mental level, the causational level, and then touching into archangels, archetypal levels,
Yeah.
coming to what the Buddhists call the bardo, the 0 point, the blackness, the tunnel, the moment. I would say it's the toroid, where the black hole seeks to absorb everything, and then we can be forever stuck in that tunnel. I used to travel through the tunnel forever, never coming out, and science says there is no way out. That black hole becomes forever smaller and smaller, but it goes and at infinitum to 0, and it never reaches 0. But then this is the spiritual uh, liberation moment, is when we realize that we no longer travel, when we jump, hyper jump beyond the point of 0 into that then which is beyond that. And now we're tapping into what I would call the first level of the 0 point, the first point of no time, no space, the first point of pure assembly of consciousness that no longer is moving, traveling, and being something that moves through time and space, but is that which is beyond time and space. And it is always, so we don't have to travel there. We can just simply, like you earlier said, become, yes, the you, aware of that which is eternal. And yet that has, like you said earlier, has volition, has identity in an odd same, in a contradictory way to the term of singularity. It still is, as you gazing at me and I gaze at you, I feel those points. How would you describe that? That if we shift to that singularity, it's like I have to shift outside of me talking, but I go simultaneously into that nonverbal, not space of energy, even not compassion, not anything, but it's that something. Can you share something that would help, that
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting because your screen froze and then I couldn't hear you. And so it was literally like a singularity of no space, no time stopping. That was quite profound, actually.
That was amazing.
I don't know if that happens to anybody else, but
You know, the funny part was earlier when we were talking, I said, well, when is the internet going to handle the frequency overload to go to
yeah.
singularity when it just freezes? Okay, so we hit the singularity state. Tell me
We hit the
about
singularity.
what is capable, what is that? You know, or just describe that. What happens for you? Because before we were describing the higher self, the feeling, the compassion, the virtues, the love, the embodiment of light and
Right.
love. What happens at that state beyond the bardo?
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. Well, yeah, from that place, it's kind of like there's a sense where that unitive nature starts to, it's so hard to talk about, but
Yeah.
I would say that when we overlap into that place together, then we have a capacity to actually bridge back into matter. And part of what I do in that moment is, yeah, I mean, that's the place where we can then start to feed the vortex and start to emanate back into creation from above the singularity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost like the point where we become generators of the light.
Yeah, where the
In
toroid becomes expulses, basically where the Big Bang begins, so to speak.
yeah. Yeah.
It is defying language. It is defying description. There is nothing but an experienced sense that you can know when the other one dips into that same and ascends from there into greater capacities. It is only something that you know when you know, and the other one knows when you share it, even as a shared experience of singularity. But it is so rare for anybody to share about it, to even verbalize about the possibility of it, that I've looked far and wide. People describing states, naturally that which then that which then opens up becomes the next stage of embodiment. It's no longer a body, it's no longer a form, it's no longer an identity as such, but it becomes a generator. It becomes the Buddhic consciousness that then pulls all of creation back, and people who engage with it, and when we encounter each other and others, we become each other's generators of superluminal consciousness.
Yeah, and I would say that from that place, we become an accelerator that lifts,
Yeah.
or in a sense actually just sees the fruition of all souls and the oversouling process, and it kind of sees the superstructures that creation brought forth. So it's almost like you become one with the informing principle of creation.
Yeah.
So you're able to see it, and seeing is becoming. And so from that level, we become part of the engine that's drawing itself back up through the zipper, kind of zips itself back up through the creation. And yeah, I want to say, like, we further along creation from that place. We become actually part of the evolutionary engine.
Yes. And that was, it leads directly to, and maybe we should make this our last question. We can pick up on another interview from here. But as you discover yourself in those states, and or become one with that Buddhic state, or that evolutionary engine of enlightened luminosity of oneness with all. Do you find, and can you observe, or do you observe effects in your life through the outside world, in other people whose lives you touch, or how does it benefit or make itself known?
Yeah, I think the quality of a transmitter, the quality of a teacher, the quality of, this is where the idea of the guru comes forth. It's because our field actually becomes a quickener or a remembrance. In a sense, you know, remembrance is the process of gathering consciousness back into a higher and higher sense of who we truly are.
So it is a gathering, which is a process, and yet it's a remembrance because the origin is embedded in the finite. The infinite is embedded in the finite.
Yeah, and so we can say that transmission is more the remembrance, in the sense that we give people back to themselves because we just are a very clean mirror. We, you know, there is this sense that the clarity of what we are residing in, there's not much else but the purity of light itself that's emanating through us, that then it reminds others of the purity of the light that they actually also operate in when they are ready to, when they are vibrationally willing to step into that. And what it takes is just an invitation sometimes. It's just a permission granted to actually feel that part of yourself that we are embodying more, maybe in that moment. Just in that moment though, like, so we're just saying, hi, would you like to meet me at this level of embodied presence, embodied love, and embodied whatever we want to call it, light.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love how in the beginning you said the synchronistic shifting of time-space is an effulgence, it's an effect of that super alignment of the center. So that I remember you posted in Facebook, you know, here's it, like you barely have the thought of the durian falling in your lap and there it drops, you know, you barely have a thought of anything and there it happens. Now, of course, we do I do experience, you do experience the coming and going of pure alignment, intensity, then dropping, having to deal with the physical world, fatigue, overextending ourselves, overgiving, and then having to learn to live in balance and being in a balance between the infinite and the finite, and taking care of ourselves in a way to not overdo the sharing and giving. But I mean, for me anyways, that's one of my lessons, is to always realize that this vehicle needs rest, this vehicle needs also nurturance and care, and to be in balance between being of service and the self. So, but given all the ups and downs with that, tell me a little bit about your experience of time, space, spinning in perfection around you, as an after effect of you aligning in completion to the one.
The main thing that I'm thinking about right now is actually, you know, because the power of relationship, relating to others, either at the same level or meeting with people who also want that reminder, need that reminder, that those become the most powerful experiences, like where it's like God bringing together the right people to create that right overlapping of gifting of each other, of blessing each other with wisdom or sharing. And I think that's what I notice a lot with synchronicity too, is who I attract.
Perfect alignments.
who gathers around me because I've increased my vibration.
Yes.
And so like vibration starts to gather around me too.
Mm-hmm.
And those confirm my choices around, yeah, I want around me the people that also uplift me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I notice that when my vibration is higher,
Yeah.
I either gather people that are in similar vibration,
Yes.
or I gather around me the people who could use the reflection of the vibration, and then there's a beauty in the exchange
Right.
that
Very
happens.
beautiful. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. As you share that, I have to share a really remarkable coincidence. Just in the last couple of days, I've thought, I'm about to go to India. We're going to go to see beautiful friends of ours in Mumbai, and then we're going to go to Rishikesh on the way. We have a couple of days, and we thought, where shall we go and what's going on? And we said, oh, maybe there is a Kumbh Mela maybe happening in India, and in my mind, I've sent out this imaginary call to a yogic being or any yogic being that could hear me imaginarily in the Himalayas, and I said, who can hear me and who can respond? And you wouldn't believe it, but I mean, seriously, do you know what I got? I got an invitation of a yogi from the mountains in the Himalayas. I believe he sent a picture of himself sitting on the Ganges. A younger guy, I would say under 30, riding, well, two things. He invited me to the Kumbh Mela. And next he said, I see you walking with me in the Himalayas, and I
Wow.
see your vibrant soul. And, I thought, like, blink, it's like we transcend time and space. We do attract that. I mean, for me, it was interesting and desirable to see the Kumbh Mela is the meeting of all enlightened beings, or so it is said to be. That was the intention for it. All the yogis, all the sages, all the babas come and collect there at the Ganges. Usually every 12 years, but then they have the Maha Kumbh Mela and the mini Kumbh Mela, so every 3 years, every 6 years, every 12 years, and so at different times, different qualities of sages come, but the next one is happening right now in the uh, a little bit northeast of oh God, I know where it is in India on the map. I looked it up, and I was invited by this yogi, young.
How did he find you? Did he already know
I
you?
don't know. No, he
My
didn't know me.
gosh.
I've never heard of his name. He's not friends with people. I'm like, he just contacts me and says, I've seen you in my meditations. And he says, come and join me. And it's like, creates an event. Join me at the Kumbh Mela in India. And he clicks, and I'm like going, oh my God. I'm just adding this little story because you said, we attract the coincidence of time space, and all of a sudden the web of time space becomes one matrix, and we are above it, and all the coincidences are triggered simply by our superseding consciousness, which puts A and B together this closely, even though it's like tens of miles and years apart. It suddenly becomes one space. So I'm encouraging all of us listening to realize that wherever you put your attention, reality follows. It may well be that we live in a holographic dream, and that whatever you put your attention on confirms itself, and you get to live your dream. So dream wisely. I like to dream of heaven on earth, and I do ask myself that I want to mature that portion up that still dreams of war and of pollution. And so I am waking and up to the potential that it may be my own dream at another level, and that I would like to, and sometimes I manage to undo that belief in that war needs to be. And then for blitz moments, peace happens. For blitz moments, what appears ready to be stacked to be having more wars becomes suddenly the solution. But it requires me to be part of that solution. And maybe we just live in a dream universe, and the divine is living with us in the dance of Maya, and there is no eternal sense in anything, no eternal permanence, neither in soul nor in the form nor in any of itself, but in the recognition that it is a live dance of recognition of the one with the many. I just wanted to share that because that is really just happening, and I'm like baffled. I'm going, where is the trick? Did this guy just find a pretty picture of myself on the internet, on the Facebook, or I mean, where is it? You know, I'm still puzzled. So, but that's my left brain coming in, going, that couldn't be right. Yogi, like, really heard me in the Himalayas and sees me in his meditation. Come on.
No. And then somehow found you out of how did he even find you? I mean, that's
well, because I was thinking of that yogi, of any yogi that could hear me. So of course, a yogi finds me, has to be, right?
Yeah.
There is no logic to the dream fabric. There is no logic. When I close my eyes and say Dorothy is no longer in Kansas, when I'm flying, as I describe in my book, Dream Big, the Universe is Listening, click my heels and say I'm landing no longer in Baltimore, but in Washington, D.C., and we do, it's like, really? Come on. Where is time-space leading us to? And if that is so, I do bless the ground of time-space that's permanent, because it gives me reliable experiences, and I can still call you up and still have again and again experiences with you that I adore and love again and again.
Wow. Thank you for this extraordinary exploration, and how it's so amazing, because we bring through all of these concepts, but in the end, we are truly blessed, even personally, to really experience as we share, and we hold that vibration together as we talk, and we get the fruit, we get the Amrita of the concepts and the presence that we're actually speaking of actually overlights, and it really does bless us, and it's such a beautiful thing.
And that is what this discussion is about, it's to open up. Say again.
It's such a beautiful thing to have friends at this expression of being able to share, and I think that's what we're all seeking. We're all looking for others who can actually see us for who we truly are. Yeah. First, we have to see ourselves, of course, as a soul. We have to know ourselves as a soul-imbued being to then know what we want to call into our life more, and see through the mirror of another just how exquisite and how beautiful we really are. And so these interfaces create evolutionary stair steps for one another, and this is truly what friends are about. If we are looking at what do friends show up for? I mean, they show up for the hard times, and we create bonding through being there for each other in the thick and the thin. And then there's this quality of uplifting and holding each other at the highest state and saying, I see you even when you don't see yourself. I'm going to be there as that light that maintains for you the mirror of what's the memory of your perfection.
Yeah. And it takes one to know one. In essence, when people find partners and beloveds, oftentimes a soulmate that they're looking for, we are required to find someone within the realm of our own capacity. When we find someone that is below our capacity, our sexual bonds will work, but once that has run its course, we can't see each other anymore, not eye to eye. And that's what we thrive on, is when we take each other into increasing levels of ignition, of enlightenment. And so whoever is listening, whenever you are, find someone who's at your level and further that. If you're looking for a soulmate that's enlightened, become enlightened first. Work at the core illumination of who you are, and then seek to find that outside of you, which will show itself naturally because of the law of attraction. Law of attraction is simply the law of resonance. You resonate, another will resonate with you, and there you are. And finding a soulmate is not about finding someone who doesn't recognize they're a soul and fully enlightened, they're not there. I have people write me and then say, I found my soulmate, but he just doesn't know it.
Right.
It's like, God, let him be. I mean, find someone who will resonate at your level and then meet at that and make yourself the matrix for the next evolutionary state.
And don't limit the idea of soulmate to somebody who's just your partner in relationship too.
Yes.
Meaning we have many soulmates, and that's, you know, what you and I are, Ilona. Though we're not partners, though you're married for 30 years, we're not limited by the framework of what we consider to be the only kind of intimacy that we share has to be with our partner at this level. And it's actually not true for humans. That idea of monogamy impresses on this experience that actually surpasses the design of the pair bonding of biological humans, you know, that pair bond for copulation and for creating a life together. That this is what takes us beyond the limitation of what it means to actually connect. And it is what we're all thriving for, even though we have ideas and limitations that go, well, I can only share that with one person.
Right.
And, you know, go there with anybody who has the capacity to go there, because that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. We're a brotherhood, a sisterhood, brotherhood, and we are the luminous co-joint unity of beings that remind each other of what true home is. And it's like imagining being an angel. Now imagine being an angel and you meet this other angelic being. And then you say, no, you're mine. Come on. No more looking at other angels. No more looking at luminosity and anybody else. No. We're just, this is it, you know. An oftentimes says, you know, if I kept that part of you only to myself, it would be a crime to humanity and evolution. And it's where he is opening his presence to you, in that where we may go, we have a particular capacity of igniting each other, and that inspires your artwork, inspires my writings, inspires those whose lives we touch, inspires the greater field. It's through that inspiration of singularity that we touch into, that then ripples into our daily lives and creates miracles in other people's lives. It's what fuels the luminosity to spread and to multiply itself into creation.
If anything, it's our duty, the more and more that we wake up, it's our duty to serve that through any vehicle, you know, that can help to co-create that, like you said, and spread that into the matrix of creation. That's when we become a blessing for others. And that is our purpose in life.
I think we've come to a beautiful full circle. I think we're both feeling it right now. It's like, I think that was it, the icing, the dot on the I. And did you feel that?
I did.
I know you did. So, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. Divine luminosity, divine gift to behold in my life. Amen. Amen. Namaste.
Beautiful. Namaste, dear one. Thank you for having me on this blog.
Thank you. Bye.
Blessings.